Welcome to Learning Life Skills Together. This is our weekly community Zoom meeting where our guests help us to go deeper into the 4 life skills and open up a huge array of chances to practice them. Hello, everyone, and welcome to week number 11 in our series of Zoom community meetings. As always, we'll begin with a practice of attention. And tonight we have with us a fly fishing guide. And so I was trying to figure out a way of simulating fishing, and we can't quite do that for you, but it is a practice of attention. And the great English poet talks about how thinking and paying attention to your thinking is so very much like fishing. So, fisherman himself, he says, I see it as I cast out and leave a little lentil-sized float on the water. And then all of my attention goes to that little lentil-sized float. And I don't want to be tense about it. I want to be just with that float and not let my attention wander too much. So I'm going to ask that we try this idea of just bringing our attention somewhere and not letting it wander too much. So if you notice that your attention wanders while we do this, you just come right back as if it were your fishing float. Okay? So let's do this with the feelings, the sensations in our hands. So you could close your eyes if that's going to work for you. And if it's not, if you're in a place where it's not a good idea, then just bring your attention into the feelings in your hands right now, the feelings of your hands touching whatever they're touching. And that feeling of aliveness in your hands. The sense of the nerves firing, impulses happening, the blood flowing, maybe the warmth of your hands. Just seeing if you can rest your attention there so that it's always there, but not in a tense way, just in a right here, right now kind of way. And if you notice that your mind isn't with your hands anymore, you can just bring it right back, just in a split second. And let it rest again. And so maybe now you could check in with yourself and notice how it feels in the moment. What's it like in your body? Did you get tense with your fishing float, or are you relaxed about it? Noticing how your mind has reacted to this. Is it quieter? Is it louder? There more stuff happening? Less stuff happening? Just so you'll know. And maybe you even have one word that expresses how it is right now, or a short phrase. And then if you'd like, if your eyes were closed, you could open them. And if you're near the chat, you could put in a word that would help there, help us to get a sense of how you are. And I am going to ask my guest, Neil Sunday, what his word or phrase would be. How are you?
Hi, Don. I felt peaceful.
Okay, peaceful. And we
Just
have
fine.
popping into the chat, relaxed. So, all right. So did was that a simulation at all of watching a float?
Well, uh, I had to actually make sure I didn't hit my computer screen with the fly rod that was actually in. I would
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So we have with us tonight Neil Sunday, who's a fly fishing guide with Relentless Fly Fishing. Um, and he is also a conservationist and very active in Trout Unlimited and really on the ground, um, doing things in the stream to the stream to improve the habitat, um, and to really improve everything around it as well. So yeah, so he is just back from 5 weeks of snow and cold fishing in upstate New York. So he has a little bit of a cold going on at the moment, and we'll excuse him for for his exposure there. So tonight we're going to continue our talk about attention uh, and walking. So both of which feature rather large in the practice of fishing. And so I thought it would be kind of fun to have a practitioner of this kind of attention, which really involves not only paying attention to that float, but paying attention to how you are inside while you're watching, and paying attention to how you are inside when you miss that strike of that big fish or you get hooked up, and then off it goes. So just, you know, lots of experience and expertise in watching himself as someone who fishes, but watching other people fish. And this is the really interesting part about people who are guides, is that they have sort of many layers of attention going on when they're out with someone fishing. So paying attention to the fish, paying attention to their client, their customer, their client, paying attention to themselves. And the thing about Neil that got me was we were out fishing once, and I was so impressed that he knew what was happening with me and, where my line was in the water. He also called my attention to a bird, and we sort of tracked it down, identified it, and did that whole thing. So there's so many layers. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about those layers of attention that you have to pay, Neil.
Sure, Don. Um, yeah, every day, my guests and I we start out and we go for that, sometimes short walk, sometimes a long walk, through, a forest or a field to get to the water. And everybody is excited, every day I start out very excited. And my guests, they want to come out and they obviously want to practice the art of fishing. And if all leads well, that ends up with a fish trying to bite our feathered imitation. So they're paying attention to the actual sport of fishing. But as you become comfortable with that, and whether it's your first day out or your 20th year, once you become comfortable in your environment, you begin to notice the peripheral edges of that lentil-sized float. So then you start, noticing the water. Maybe the water is rising or clearing, or you'll notice the sun. Maybe it's starting to burn your cheeks, or maybe the wind is picked up and it's chilly. Um, it keeps expanding, and and because I fish almost every day, you had said that it was you were amazed at, oh, I noticed a random bird flying by, and it was a red-tailed hawk, actually, I believe, that day.
Hmm.
But what happens is, as you become comfortable with one aspect of the journey, it allows you to expand to the other facets of the environment that are coming in, and that's what contributes, I think, to a truly enjoyable day of taking your fly rod for a walk in the woods, or what some would call fishing. So yeah, many layers.
Many layers. So, um, there's this widening ring of attention, and there's also the really tightening of that attention when something happens.
Absolutely.
So I'm wondering if you could talk about that dimension of
Yeah.
attention.
Well, you know, fishing is a fine, like you said, it's a fine line. It goes from, you have to be attentive to your cast, to where it lands in the fish's feeding zone. You have to be, we're looking through the water to try to read if that fish is going to rise to the surface to eat our fly, or so you're focusing on your cast. But then you begin to focus on so much more than that. And I may be off base from the original question, but it's a line of, are you paying attention enough to your cast, but also to the entire surroundings? Because the more you put into the funnel that you are aware of, uh, usually the better result. You know, the more factors that you can be attentive to, you wind up having a better result of actually being able to capture that said fish, which we turn around and release ever so gently into the water.
Uh,
But you know, while that is occurring, I also encourage my guest to look up every once in a while, because they're staring, out there at the water all day, maybe in that small ring of focus. And to me, the actual fish are a small part of the entire day. So I try to have them widen that ring, or peel back the layers and truly experience an entire day, of watching Mother Nature. It's really surprising sometimes, the amount of things that capture adults and younger anglers alike. You know, little things like mink on the yellow breeches that scurry, just at the water's edge. They run. They have a tendency to run right at the water's edge, in and out of trees and root balls. And there's that's just one animal that we watch. There's great blue herons all the time. Talk about attention.
yeah.
More
Oh, they are the poster bird for
yeah,
attention. Yes,
yeah.
when they are fishing, they are fishing.
They are fishing because they're hungry, unlike us.
Right.
I have snacks in the car I bring, or food we need.
There you go.
They
Yeah.
sure, they are laser like precision in their focus. So I try my guest, I try to have them experience all realms of that, you know, focused enough to catch a fish, but yet relaxed enough to enjoy everything else that's actually happening, you know.
Yeah, yeah, it really is that balance that Ted Hughes was the poet.
Yeah.
His name escaped me, as you probably noticed. But so Ted Hughes talking about, you don't want to be full of tension. You just want to have attention. And so it's our mind is much more clear when we're sort of in that resting state, that relaxed state. And I don't know. I'm a big bird watcher too. As we actually did a podcast on bird watching, which will be released very soon, and so watching herons, egrets, those wading birds, just looking, and they are not tense about it, and but the power's there and they're ready, and it's the same with cats.
Yeah.
They don't have tension in them when they're watching for their prey. They really, they're just loose and ready. And so this idea about attention is one that comes into the kinds of attention that we want to be paying to what's around us and what's in us. So we don't want to be so tense about how am I going to feel, or how am I feeling right now. Oh no, I don't want this feeling. It's like, oh, look at that.
Yeah.
It is ideally how we want to be able to respond. And so I know that you have seen the gamut of people's responses to having a big fish on, and then having an empty line slack in the air.
Oh,
So I'm just wondering about, sort of what you see, and what kind of skills come into play, both from themselves, that you watch happen, and from you, frankly.
right. Well, when when I'm watching someone, and it happens all the time, you have
Oh,
to deal with successes.
hmm.
Wonderful to celebrate when someone lands that holiday card photo that
Right, right.
and you celebrate those emotions. But part of my profession as a fishing guide is I have to minimize the losses and the temperament of of the loss. And at the end of the day, Don, we're out fishing. Um, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful world, and we're out enjoying it. Um, you know, I try not to let the uh the heartbreak of someone losing a trophy fish ever bring us down. I say we celebrate the fact that we fooled it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether we successfully landed it or not, um,
Right.
we high five and we celebrate the fact that our attention was there in the moment, that we fooled that fish with our fly or our feathered offering, and whether we bring it in or not, you know, no harm, no foul. We're moving on to the
Mm.
next one, because
Yeah.
I've watched folks for the last 10 years uh try to lament and sorrow that fish back onto the line. It just doesn't work. so
Yeah.
so it's an emotional ride, but it's all good. And like I said, at the end of the day, we're fishing.
Yeah.
We're not we're only solving half the world's problems today. Excuse me.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's all good.
Yeah. So in this program of learning life skills together, we touch down on these four skills. So we talked about we're talking about attention tonight, and I'm sort of leading you into the next one, which is working with our emotions. And you're sort of suggesting that, wow, that was an amazing trip. It didn't end the way I thought it was going to, and there it is. It's an idea of taking perspective on how things actually are, not how we wish they were.
Yeah,
So much of our emotional churn comes from how we wish it had been, or how we hope it's going to be, rather than how it actually is. And sort of the fish keep you honest.
that is true.
I'm suspecting that there's this sense of, this is how it really is, fella.
Absolutely. You know,
You with the fly rod, that's how this really is.
yeah, I tell you, I don't know how many times, you get someone out there that you just have to explain to them, just because we're here doesn't mean they have to feed the fish. We're on their terms, and
Mm,
the fish are ultimately what decide, whether they're going to be caught or not.
yeah.
And in dealing with that, I've traveled the world in pursuit of angling and fly fishing, and if I relied on catching a fish and being successful in that one endeavor, I would be disappointed a lot of the times. In the most beautiful places, whether it's in the Cumberland Valley, out just out towards Carlisle and Boiling Springs, or the Rocky Mountains, or Montana, or Chile, or New Zealand, all places I've been. If I relied on just the fish, I'd probably just be disappointed. So
Mm,
temperate tempering my expectations, and realizing that I'm working with
yeah.
that I'm in pursuit of a wild animal, and it's part of nature, and I have to play on their terms. So
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. I may or may not have went off there a little bit, but
No, 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 no. That was exactly what I think we're talking about, is emotion. Regulating our emotions really starts with what our expectations are. That's one thing we can say, is if we're going into it with your idea of, hey, I'm doing something that I really love. I get to do this. That, you know,
absolutely.
yeah, that's a place to start, that does help regulate your emotions. And then the next one is tolerating distress.
Mhm.
And so this is something that you also have very close experience with, from being in upstate New York with 30 inches of snow falling and still getting out and fishing. So I wonder if there are some insights, for us, whether we're fishing or not. It's like, how is it that, as you were saying, paying this particular kind of attention, that's a very focused but relaxed attention, and then, taking a perspective on it that helps to regulate the emotion within it, and then there you are.
Yeah, yeah,
So this next, sort of
yeah.
piece of, I'm basically having to tolerate distress. I am not the way I want to be. And so how does that work? And how does that work for your guests?
You know, it's just, I try to focus on a few things. Um, if my guests and I are safe and we're prepared, really, for the environment, the weather. If we're safe and we're prepared, then it's just a matter of being in the moment, and letting yourself enjoy the moment, and accepting maybe some folks don't like 2.5 feet of fresh powder snow. You know what I mean? But There's nothing we're going to do to change the weather. I mean,
Mm,
it's
yeah.
almost, it sounds almost absurd when I say that, out loud, but the faster you accept it and have the I don't know, the internal fortitude to just accept and deal with the weather, if you are prepared and if you are safe, then you can truly enjoy it. I always, if I look back at the thousands of pictures I have on my phone that I take, I take photographs of folks out enjoying a day of fishing, and I usually look at some of the most inclement, some of the worst weather brings out the biggest smiles. Looking back on it all, those days where you know, have ice in the eyelets of your fishing line and your rods. The people are smiling and enjoying it. So
Mm,
it's just really just being prepared, and that's my job, and what I pride myself on as a guide is ensuring those two things: the preparedness and the safety of my guest.
yeah.
Everything else is sort of a bonus if it goes our direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
for which I'm responsible for my guest's safety and my guests being prepared. And whether that's
That's
trip or during the trip, whether I have hand warmers, snacks, water.
mm. It is almost like parenting. I want to say, since that's what we're talking about here. And so and so it's the knowing where you're going, knowing what you'll need, be prepare. The other piece, I think, that if I can run away a little bit with the parenting piece, is the having the child prepared for what's going to happen, letting them know here are the things that might happen, and you're safe, and here it is, and then letting that kind of attention that we were talking about, that relaxed but focused attention, just rest on the events that you're experiencing together. So I'm wondering what you see with parents and kids, and how that goes with fishing, because you know one of the things I'm trying to do here being in this um, long number of podcasts that we're gonna spin out, is to give people ideas of things that they can practice together with their kids regularly, so that they get a chance to really share these skills, demonstrate these skills.
Sure.
So,
Um,
yeah.
well, I have each year of the 120 or 30 trips I do, I have countless numbers of folks that come out, parents with their children to experience time alone, and then also time with their children without a cellular device in their child or their hands, because it's pretty hard to fly fish with a cell phone in your hand. So um I see parents and children either enjoying a cherished activity maybe that's been handed down through generations to from that parents or that child's grandparents, or in learning a new skill together. There's a commonality if the parent and their children are learning a new skill together. And I really, when I have that situation, I really try to make it, every trip I try to make wonderful, but I really try to allow that parent and that child to enjoy the sense of learning a new skill and time together. I really try to elevate that and keep it, in check with each other, so they're learning at the same pace, they're having success at the same pace.
Mm,
You know, I as a fishing guide, I always say if I have two people, my goal is at the end of the day, if we're counting, that the numbers are even, that win the
Right,
race. Uh,
right.
you know, but watching parents spending time with their children, and an average a half day with me is 4 to 6 hours. Um, it's amazing when you're out there at hour, towards the end of the day. There haven't been cell phones around, and the parents and the children are really communicating on almost a peer-to-peer level almost. And that's a
Mm,
really unique experience. And I usually at that point realize that maybe we've had a successful day. Um,
mm.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely.
Zero, I think we've had a successful day, and
Right.
parents, I think, agree with me on that. So
Yeah, yeah. No, that's it. I mean, I think that's a day spent with the kind of attention that we're talking about, and the kind of attention to each other, and to safety, and those other things, you know, and people could bring you in to watch over all of that, and and they could also go off and do these things themselves, practice in this way. And so the other piece that we talk about in learning life skills together, um, is the activity in a real general sense that goes along with the skill. So this is the skill of attention, and the activity is walking. And so you said earlier, well, taking your fly rod for a walk is one way of describing what you're doing for the day, right?
that's a
So I'm wondering if you could talk a little more about the opportunities for walking and light exercise, because this is the other thing, when we're this is ultimately a preventive mental health program, this learning life skills together. So everything that we're bringing in really has a science basis to it in its healthfulness, both physically and mentally. And so going for a walk or getting some light exercise, we know is one very fulfilling of our own wellness while we're doing it. We feel better after a day out trudging around, or a day stepping in and out of the creek, right? Um, so there's opportunities within the practice of fishing to practice in this way, and I'm just
yeah,
wondering what your thoughts are.
sure. I very rarely do I have a hard time falling asleep at the end of a day of fishing. Um, I a typical day we start in the morning, and if we just fish till lunchtime, we're covering about 3.5 to 4 miles. If pending, and I have the short loops that I can take, but
Mhm.
the nice thing about it, after a brief introduction in the morning, and just setting those expectations, if a person says, hey, I want to go explore the areas, take me as if you were had the day off and you were going wherever you wanted. And I might, yeah, I might, I match the trail or the area that we fish to what I feel will be tolerable and enjoyable for my guests. And it's usually anywhere between 3 to 4 miles in a half day. And if it's a full day, well, we could go upwards of 5 miles. And that's not just not just to put a step count or a mileage count on it, but it's it's the fact that you're walking, and I have my elderly father, has Parkinson's, and I love to take him out fishing, and I give him a walking staff, And it was about 2 weeks ago, actually. I was home from New York just for a couple days to check in, and took dad out fishing, and we heard the leaves under our feet, just and we gained a great sense of I don't know, when you're in tune with the changing of the seasons. And we realized, fall is here and winter is almost creeping in. It was one of those cold days, and we were just walking, and yes, we had a fly rod in our hand, but that was the last thing we were actually paying attention to. So those experiences, in the middle of summer, you're walking and you might come upon a black snake, and everybody jumps for a second, and then you realize it's a harmless little snake. But those experiences when you take your rod for a walk in the woods, um, they really help make the day. And that could be, you know, I'm blessed to operate usually out of the Cumberland Valley. I do work up in Lake Ontario, but every once in a while, most of the areas that I work are absolutely beautiful scenery. So if we go fishing, with my guests, even if the fish are biting, even if we're having a fantastic day catching, after a while, we're gonna change the scenery just so my guests don't have to look at the same bank, across the creek all day. And I say that, it's
Right.
it's slang for me saying I want to change spots. It's let's go change the scenery,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and then we walk back to the cars, and or we walk downstream a half mile, or a couple hundred yards, and look at something else. And it's just one of the small little things I try to do in a day to enhance the experience
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
everybody. You know, it keeps young, and from the younger guests and the children to the adults. When you change the scenery, it keeps their attention.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
if things are getting stale, you change the scenery, and it's a whole fresh set. I say a fresh set of downs. So so yeah,
Right.
I
Yeah.
I, I love the art, the walks, the walk in and the walk out, and the conversations, because usually when you're standing, in the stream, at that point you're usually talking about fishing.
Yeah.
But the walks in, the walks out, that's when you learn about your guests. They learn about me. Um,
Yeah.
it's a great
Yeah.
it's a great exchange, and I
Yeah.
get to do that every day. And I mean, I'm fortunate to have a lot of repeat guests. So instead of the "Hi, my name is Neo," and and whoever,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you get to catch up on things. So
Right. Yeah.
I don't want those walks. Sometimes we just keep walking.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's wonderful. It's really
Absolutely.
integral part of the day.
So yeah, and so I mean, I'm imagining parent and child in this kind of scenario as well. Okay, we're doing the fishing, whether it's at the local pond, or whether it's in a destination stream that they've chosen, or however it is that the approach um, is a time of really exchanging what's up with you. How are you? Where we're going to put all this aside when we get to the water, right? When we're on the water, we're not. That's beyond it. But talking about, well, how's school?
Yeah,
Whatever, on the way to, and then there's this like nice space where we're paying this kind of focused attention to the practice that we're doing of fishing. And then on the way back, we can tap into, hey, what's it like for you right now? How are you feeling? you know are you still worried about that stuff that we talked about when we got here?
yeah,
That kind of thing, that kind of shift, I think is really readily available with fishing as a practice,
yeah.
and walking as a practice as well.
Don, just real quick, part of I think part of becoming a guide is recognizing when my guests maybe are having a conversation of their own, and
Mm,
I tend to either jump ahead by a few more paces to let them have their own privacy, or
right.
I'll stop and tie my shoe and say, keep walking, or give them their distance so they are being guided and I'm showing them where we're going. However, I don't need to lead every step of the way. And I know when to stand back and let
Mm,
experience
yeah.
their own day. And
Yeah, yeah. And as our kids get older, we need
yes,
we need that skill more and more, when to step away and when to step back and lead again. Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
All coming out of that attention again, which you're paying both to your guest um and the fishing part of it.
Absolutely.
So I have a question. So um, let's say that a parent decides they want to take their kid fishing, and maybe it's a parent who is, adept at fishing, is good at it, and knows where to go, and so they can probably sort this out. But what about a parent who just wants to like get themselves and their kid started on this, adventure that can take you around the world, just like birding?
Absolutely. Um, there where to start, it's very easy. You know, I most local fly fishing stores, if you Google search them, there's probably one within 10-20 miles of anybody tuning in today. Um, those fly fishing stores are you work at a fly fishing store because you're an enthusiast, not because you're a salesman. You're looking to talk and spread your passion and your knowledge, your local knowledge to whoever's walking through the door. Uh,
Mm,
you had mentioned earlier that I do a lot of conservation work, and the people in the fly fishing stores actually play an important role in conservation because they are stewards of their waterway for which they service as a fly fishing store. So when they're giving customer A information or tidbits on where to go, it's that employee's responsibility to spread their knowledge so they're not beating down a path right to that one spot in particular that they send everybody to.
right. Yeah.
The knowledge to keep your wild places wild. And I that's one of the things that I try to instill upon the younger kids that either work in the store or come in fishing is to build your knowledge base every time you go out. Try a different spot for once. The old lucky spot might be your number one producer, but go somewhere else. Take a chance. What's the worst
Mm,
thing? You may not
yeah.
catch, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, visiting your local fly fishing store, they're all family owned. I know all the fly fishing shops, in central Pennsylvania and beyond, down in Philadelphia, Delaware, Maryland. They've all got family ownership, and
Yeah.
they're more than happy to show what they know to their customers walking through the door. And that's really the starting grounds. I was passionate about it when I worked in the stores before I became a full-time guide, and now I just have customers that are on a different basis. Yeah,
Right. Right.
yep.
So
That's your
so okay. So go out and talk to somebody who knows, is the way to get started, is what you're saying.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, you could watch YouTube videos, albeit you may find them, a little impersonable at times, or there's not a whole lot that I'm going to learn from watching a video on Pacific Northwest steelhead when I'm trying to
Right.
out in Cumberland Valley. But YouTube's a great one. I wish we would have had it 30 years ago, Don, when I started. And I even addressed that in one of my own YouTube videos that we learned through trial and error. But YouTube's a great start, but then take it to the fly shops, really, you know, and develop. That's how I started. To tell you the truth, I was the fly shop in Boiling Springs, TCO Fly Shop. I was one of their regular, almost daily customers
Yeah,
for about 6 weeks until they offered me a job, and then now look, made
there you go.
it all the way to fly fishing guide. So no, it's something that we encourage. Even I see young kids come through the door. High school kids maybe started a conservation or an outdoor club or a hiking club. And I've helped a lot of clubs, local school clubs, get started or help them out, because those young kids, beyond becoming future customers, they're future conservationists. And really, conservation of our natural resources and what we have out there, our cold, clear water habitats, are so vital. They're the lifeblood of my passion of my sport
Yeah,
and
yeah,
profession for that. So,
yeah,
I see the youth as, with a little bit of mentoring, a lot of these young kids develop into great future conservationists, and it makes me so happy when I see one of them that I know that I worked with. So,
yeah, yeah.
and that's the larger aspect of being a fishing guide or in the industry. So,
Yeah. So for serious fishing, i.e. fly fishing, what's the age at which you think kids start, or what have you seen?
oh, I always say, most every kid with a worm and a fishing pole, when they're 4, 5, 6 years old.
Right?
About 7, they can become fly curious, and that's a coined term there. I have twin nephews who are 10, and I adore these kids. I started them when they were between 8 and 9 years old. Is
Mhm.
the starting age, to physically have enough strength and dexterity
Yeah.
to hold a fly fishing rod. And there's multiple moving parts. You talked about when we did our check-in this morning, the attention practice, holding the fly line in my hands, that tactile sense.
Hmm.
There's a couple different moving parts there, and I think about 9 is the great time to start your children in fly fishing, where they can actually enjoy some successes in the sport.
Yeah, yeah, and be able to do the walking in the woods and that kind of thing as well, in tandem with the fishing. Yeah.
And start small. Start out in 45-minute to an hour long shifts if they can handle that. And my advice would be for parents, don't pick the hottest July 4th weekend, or don't pick the trip to New York with 30 inches of snow.
Right. Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
uh, Pick those moderate, beautiful days, and go and enjoy the time in the
Yeah.
woods
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
your children and a fly rod. So,
Yeah. And maybe there's even the sense that it can be part of a day out in nature.
so
Just yeah. Yeah.
doesn't have to be all day. Moderate, even a moderate. I think, like we talked about, taking those 10 deep breaths a day. They sure do. They sure do some good, don't they?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Even
Absolutely.
a short time. Uh,
Yeah.
the best time to go fishing is when you can. You know what I mean? Always. I don't know how many ever.
Yes.
When's the best time to go fishing? Well,
When you can go.
when you can.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
it's 20 minutes before work,
Yep.
I
There
would
you
be guilty of that. You know what I
go.
mean? So,
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, I'm just wondering now if you have any closing thoughts or words of wisdom. It's been great chatting with you about this, and I'm excited. I'm not sure I'm ready to go into 30 inches of snow, but I'm thinking about it.
Yeah,
So
we'll get out again. See
yeah.
me in the spring. But now let's see here. I would say, words of wisdom. Just if you find yourself lucky enough to be out there with your children, and you're having a wonderful day, um, try to adapt uh, a pace of nature. And what I mean by that is, if you notice the way the bubbles in the water float by, or say a leaf is floating on the surface of the water, it's being carried, by the water or by the wind or whatever it may be. Try to mimic the pace of nature. And what you'll find, at least in my mind, it clears the mind. It might allow a focus or an attention. You may notice also that, your child that's maybe has ADHD or whatever it may be, you may find that nature has a calming and focusing effort with yourself, with your child. And when you can do that, when I have the orthopedic surgeon look at me and say, I forgot about everything for the last 3 hours, Neil, as their phone rings when we get back to
Right.
consider it a successful day. So when you go out there, like I said, we're only solving half of the world's problems on a day of fishing. We're not going the whole way. But if we can enjoy if we can enjoy the pace of nature on the walk in and during the fishing activity and on the walk out, we've had a good day. And I think you'll find you have a wonderful day with yourself or with your children also. So that's anything I can say. It's right there in a nutshell.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us. It was wonderful, and I look forward to talking with you again, maybe in the spring, as you were saying. We got all 4 skills to go.
We can
Yeah.
talk a few more whenever you'd like. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks
All
for
right.
today.
Bye bye.